Hello, everyone. This is your host, Reverend Jackie Greggs. And today we have with us Reverend Ken Davis. And this is the Come Empty segment of the Awareness podcast. Let me just tell you a little bit about Reverend Ken before we get into our conversation today. Reverend Ken is an ordained minister, a spiritual director, and a life coach, and a wonderful person. I just threw that part in. He currently leads A Course in Miracles meeting group for the Center for Conscious Living in Morristown, New Jersey. He's written several articles for Miracle Magazine. He's a contributing author in the anthology by John Mundy and A Course in Miracles, and currently publishes the Course in Oneness blog.com, which we will tell you that again at the end of the show so that you can go and access it. But it is a oneness commentary on each of the workbook lessons in A Course in Miracles. So welcome, Reverend Ken. How are you?
I am so good. It's good to see your bright and shining face and your smile and hear your voice. And as your crowd probably already knows, your singing voice is a wonder and a blessing.
Oh my goodness, thank you for that.
It's a match to your presence.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Okay, so we're done today. Y'all can go do what you want to do. That's all I needed to hear. I don't know what y'all needed to hear. But no, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. And I'm so excited to speak with you today. Before we jump into the many of our conversations around oneness, I want to know a little bit more and kind of share with folks, you've been a student of A Course in Miracles for quite some time. How did you come to the A Course in Miracles? What was your path that led you?
Well, I tell people this story because there's several parts on it that even I find striking. I came to the Course because I broke my neck. Yeah. In fact, I broke my neck so badly that a neurosurgeon had to put my neck back together and give me a brace so it would heal. All right. Which I won't go into the story of it, meant that I had to go home because I wasn't living at home when I broke my neck. I was in the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard fixed my neck and went home to recover. And there my mother was to take care of me, This was Detroit, Michigan. And I had an opportunity at that time during my recovery to visit Unity Temple in Detroit, Michigan. Now, Unity Temple had always had a tradition of keeping all kinds of books in their bookstore. And it's a beautiful place, and I learned a lot of wonderful things as a child. So when I was asked to go, I went. I didn't have anything better to do but, wear this brace, get better, and hang out this Sunday. And everyone was excited. This was in 1976. Everyone was excited about this new thing just came out called A Course in Miracles in 3 volumes, 3 hardbound volumes, huge hardbound volumes. Can't even get them anymore, I think. And they were so excited that I went over to check it out, and they had these 3 volumes. And the first volume I looked at, I wonder why they're so excited. I picked up the last one. It was the thinnest because, you want to go for the easy lessons, but no, this was the manual for teachers. And I said, well, to myself, maybe this would be over my head to understand what it's about. Next, I went for the workbook for students. I said, well, I'm not a student yet. Looks interesting. It was nice. It was a good size. And I opened it. I looked at what it said, and I said, now this makes absolutely no sense at all. None. I don't get it. So I said to myself, well, there's the text, huge thing also. So maybe if I look at the text, I'll understand something. I opened it. I didn't. So I said, now I got to be able to glean something from this. So I naturally went to the introduction. And there it was. the introduction to A Course in Miracles is literally a half a page explaining the whole Course in Miracles. Let me give you a little backstory. I told you I was from Detroit, and I went back to Detroit to recover from breaking my neck, which also prompted me to once again ask myself, what is this life for? Here I am laid up, nearly killed myself. What's that about? Nearly made myself completely paralyzed. There's got to be a reason for that. So what's going on here? Life must have a reason, a purpose. What is mine? And I was asking these questions in a time and place where in 1975, there was a lot going on in this country about race problems, what we're going to do about the race problem. And in Detroit, it was also a have and have not problem. And in many ways, those two problems collided. It also happened that I was a kind of a student of history, World War II. And so there were characters in history that I didn't understand, like Stalin, Hitler. What kind of person does the kind of things I read about them doing? We won't even get to people like Cecil Rhodes. So I had a lot of these untreated mental illnesses. I call them mental illnesses, mental ailments, because they were like rocks I was carrying around that I did not know how to let go of. And when I went and looked in the mirror, I had even more questions. What does this face looking back at me mean? What does it mean that I have this face? And so I wondered about the idea of hate, because everyone told me it was opposite of love. And here, right in the middle of the introduction, it says very clearly that hate is not the opposite of love. Let me tell you, I read that introduction, that half a page. I understood one half of one sentence in that introduction, and it completely revolutionized my life for about 4 decades.
Wow.
Put me on the road to peace. It was a lesson I carried with me everywhere. It taught me everything I needed to know about what the Course teaches about forgiveness, about who and what I really was. It set me on the road to understanding the value and importance of oneness, what oneness means in a practical sense, which seems like a contradiction, but we can talk about that later. It says, the opposite of love is fear. That jumped off the page, and maybe they had to pick me up from the floor when I read that, because suddenly people like George Wallace, I don't know if some of your readers might not, some of your viewers might not know who George Wallace is, but he was very famous for being a segregationist.
Yes.
People
And
like
George,
Hitler.
yeah.
Yes. People like Hitler begin to make sense to me. People who seem to hate everyone, I now understood, or anyone who hated anyone, I now understood that I was mislabeling what I was seeing, that this was really fear. What could it mean that all this hateful behavior, the source of it, really is fear? And it's very easy to understand the answer to that question.
And Reverend Ken, you just made me think, right? Like even what we're looking at today, when you look at what's happening in
Yes, we were going to get to that.
Right? Yeah. It's still the same thing, right? It's still the same thing.
Well, yes, it is. Even what Putin is doing right now, today, is understandable in that context. I'm not saying ratifiable. I'm not saying it should be permitted, but it certainly places a man like even him firmly within the human experience. And the value of that struck me much later on when I began to understand that that is what the purpose of the teaching is, to understand that no one is outside the human experience, no matter how much of a monster they may seem to you. And in fact, understanding that in the face of every behavior that you see is your challenging in life, says the Course. This is the teaching moment you have with everyone that pushes your buttons. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's your kid sister, the uncle, yes, who molested you, the bigot who shot at you because of the color of your skin, the man who decided that all Jews should be eliminated from Germany and murdered, all now placed in the context of the human experience, that the human experience includes, yes, this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that and accepting that is one of the most difficult and daunting challenges we have in our day, that we've always had as humans. Mm-hmm. That challenge before us. And it has been the source of the insight of spiritual practice in terms of interrelationships since there ever were spiritual practices from the beginning. Okay? So, as I said, for decades, understanding that what I was looking at was not hate, was fear. Mm-hmm. Was my first Course lesson, and it carried me through to a physical and emotional adulthood.
Wow.
Now, it took me decades to be ready for the actual rest of the teachings, which really turned into an echo of that one revelation and that one sentence. Mm-hmm. Do you recall the rest of that sentence, the other half of the sentence that I didn't understand when I first read it? Because that's the emphasis that you've asked me to chat about today. Mm-hmm. And here they are, bound together. The absence of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposite. And now we're talking about oneness.
Yes, indeed.
They are bound, those two statements being bound together perhaps made it inevitable that oneness has been a concern of my teaching on the Course. Mm-hmm. When I read the Course, I see beneath everything, even if it's covertly placed, the idea of oneness shines like a beacon for me. No matter how many different ways the Course refers to it or speaks of it, whether they use metaphors, whether they use situational explanations for how the Course works, or what is true about the Course and what's true about ourselves, whether they use stories, whether the Course uses completely different concepts that seem unrelated. It all comes back to the all-inclusiveness of capital R reality. Mm-hmm. So, and it was kind of interesting how I got back to the Course, because there was at one point, this guy wrote a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Gary Renard, yeah.
Gary Renard, and for some reason he got his book featured on NPR. And my wife and I were sitting there watching. I think we'll contribute this year. We want to contribute to NPR. We get that book and see what it's about. Sounds fantastic. I got it. We got it, and I ignored it. Renee read it. She says, "Ken, you got to read this."
Mm.
Now, at this point, I had never told my wife that I ever picked up the course, looked at it, or had a revelation about it. It became that course teaching on fear had just seeped into my being. At that point, I actually forgot that that's where it came from, and it didn't occur to me to share that with her. With all the years I've known her, even so. And we began to read the course after reading Disappearance.
Okay.
And doing it that way caused us to take in the course at quite another level than my first exposure, in which I had no idea what anything but one half of one sentence in the introduction meant.
So what was the time frame though? So between when you first read the course and then you're picking up the Disappearance of the Universe?
I broke my neck in 1976. About a year, 2 years after the course was published.
Okay.
And I think it must have been 2000, no, it was 1995.
Okay.
Or so, 1992, 1995. When was the Disappearance of the Universe published? It was shortly after it was published that I had a chance to come back to the course.
Okay.
I am looking it up. And the fact is, it came at exactly the right time for me. And the fact that I had that first reading of the course had revolutionized my thinking, made the course available to me, to my mind, to accept and understand, and made this book available to me and to accept and understand. It was published in 2003. So then that must have been in 2004, 2005, actually, that I picked up on it again. And I find that because I've been steeped in it so long, that when I read it, it's clear to me for some reason. The course is very clear to me from understanding the nature of oneness. And I'm counting actually some experiences, and there's terms for that in the course, of oneness, an actual one or two actual experiences of oneness. And when I had that experience after reading the course, I realized that it is an experience I've had before that I did not have a label for.
Do you mind sharing what the experience was?
Well, I was a little embarrassed to say, my wife and I were going through kind of a contentious time. I remember being very sad about it. And she was in New York taking care of her parents, and I was holding down the home front. And so the house was empty, it was just me. And there was just a sense of being down, a sense of being isolated that I'd never experienced in this house before. Of course, it was relatively rare that I was physically isolated in this house. And there was a moment I was walking through the house, and there was just something that floored me, made me stop in my tracks. And it was like a vision I had of something that would be hard to explain in language. I think I must have stood there for about 20 minutes, unmoving. I was struck by a sense of connectedness with everything and everyone, including her. It was as though I reached out for her, but everyone ended up getting included. That I could not, there was no sense of reaching out for her in the experience. There was only a sense of not being disconnected, not only from her, but from anyone. You understand? There was no sense of reaching out. There was a sense of belonging. Mm. And there was much less a sense of as that which belongs to all of it. I have a name, a story, separate from anyone or everyone else's name and story. Mm. And there was a sense of completeness and peace that rang in my spirit. That's the best way I can describe it. First time I had that experience, I was 11 years old. Wow. I was told, Kurt, they called me Kurt as a kid, you're not allowed to go back over there across the street and play with the kids' pool table, whatever it was. I was enamored of the kids' toys, but I would invite myself over, and my mother apologized and say, we're not like that. We usually ask, if our kid can come over, and so I don't know. And so they made me promise not to go over there. I went over there, came back and lied about it. And they were really upset because they knew I lied. Mm-hmm. The next time I did it, I remember coming back through the back gate because, they were across the alley from me. And as I was approaching the house, I heard this voice say, well, what are you going to tell them? But it wasn't a voice. It was like something out of nowhere and everywhere. Mm. And I spoke to someone somewhere out of nowhere and everywhere. Okay, I'm just going to tell them. I don't know where that came from. Why are we suddenly being so honest here? Mm-hmm. Right? What's the point? And I realized that was that same stunned sense of connectedness. And it was a time when I was wanting to know what to do. The Course would say that the Holy Spirit is always available there to answer specific questions that you may have. Mm-hmm. The Holy Spirit really only answers one question. It's never the specific one you have, but it always seems to be. So I did. I went in there and I told them the truth without any motive. I didn't know exactly why am I doing this. There was this sense of, well, this is the thing to do. And I did it. But I realized it was that same experience. Mm. The same experience. I mean, Nate, I still got, a spanking. I still got it. That's right. But my parents hadn't changed. I had changed. I realized, and it was like, I didn't feel sorry for myself. Mm-hmm. The whole incident was, okay. Consequences and all, I did. Okay, fine. And I didn't go back. But the point was, there was something about me choosing a path that wasn't of least resistance, that was perhaps more uncomfortable from that experience. And that led to the life-changing experience I had that day when there was something about me that reached into me and said, everything that seems to be different one from the other, every person that seems to be different one from the other isn't. Mm. It just seems that way. Mm-hmm. That changed my experience of myself and everyone else and my understanding of what oneness is. Now, I hesitate to tell people about that story because what people do, what I have done in the past, and what all of our tendencies do is take so-and-so's experience and compare it to my experience and say, well, my experience is different or better or worse, and then make it mean something. The Course says you don't even need to have an experience like that. It's not even necessary for you to have an enlightened mind, which is the old term for it, enlightenment, which is what the Course is about. The Course is about enlightenment,
Mhm.
quiet as it's kept.
Right. But before you can get there, right,
Mm.
there's a lot of undoing that has to happen.
Yes, yes, and a lot
It's
of it's
like,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
But it's just interesting because from that experience as a child, I realized that there were certain things I was willing to be uncomfortable for.
Mm-hmm.
And some certain things that were beyond explanation that I was willing to be uncomfortable for. And so when I had this experience of this numinous experience, that would be the word to describe it. More recently, when I felt this connectedness with all that is, and this non-distinctness of what I thought I was, that I was willing to be, it was uncomfortable. My ego was uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but I was willing to be uncomfortable. I was willing to accept the idea that there's the gateway to pass through that discomfort leads to peace.
Mm. You were willing to go through that.
Yes, there's a Zen saying that's accompanied by two large combative statues before the temple, one on the right, one on the left. The what is it? The guardians of the gateway to the temple of truth are two: paradox and confusion.
Mm.
And to the Western mind, these are uncomfortable states. You'll never get past them if you do not develop a capacity to be uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just say, every time I listen to you, I'm always like, yep, hey, yep, and yeah. What you just said there was so much there. Because I've certainly felt that. Like, it's almost like, so when you accept whatever is, and you're not the one that's trying to make it be different, because the struggle is in wanting it to be other than what
Yes,
it is.
absolutely.
With that comes, that may not feel like, strawberries and ice cream, right? It's like,
Yes.
some of that, like what you just said, is uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And to be willing to experience what is uncomfortable. I would just say what I've learned so far, especially with working with you and you working with me. What I've learned so far is that that surrender piece of it is where peace is. Like the struggle is wanting it to be different, surrendering, giving it all up and saying, hey, you know what? All right.
Yes.
That's when I have experienced the most amount of peace.
That's why the serenity prayer is so powerful, right?
Yeah. There was one, so I'm going to pull a couple of things from your website, right? There was this one I really want you to jump in and talk about too. So one of the quotes on there was around that oneness cannot be grasped, right? But reaching toward it is vital for noticing where we have declared that there is something else. That something else is something else. It can be something else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, yes.
Can you just kind of pick that apart for us?
What is so difficult to understand in this life is that as soon as we come out of the womb, we're told that we're a body. Now, what you don't understand, the hidden part of understand that something is a thing, is that, and this is the part we miss, is that when we declare a thing, a cup is a cup, a watch is a watch, that means everything else is not. So when someone tells you you're a body, that means everyone else and everything else is not that body, is not you. And one of the primary teachings of A Course in Miracles is, I am not a body.
Mm-hmm.
I am free.
Yes.
For I am still as God created me. The point of this is to understand that your mind has been trained to finitude, smallness. And what we are doing in the Course is a very Buddhist thing. It is training our minds to grasp the abstraction of equanimity, the abstractions of the, what's that word that was in the introduction? All encompassing. Mm-hmm. To identify with the all encompassing instead of the body you were told that you were. So in our current condition, what we really need to help us on that path is tools that spark our imagination.
Okay.
With our imagination, a very powerful thing, we can place ourselves in our understanding of the world and our relation and the relationship of those two in a new context. And that's what I mean by reaching for it. That's what I mean by being uncomfortable with paradox and confusion, about allowing yourself to stand in that undecided, undeciduous, non-specific space and see yourself as being the same outside your body as in. A big job. If you can imagine that what you are includes the chair across the room, you're doing a good stretch here. Mm-hmm. Or even better, the person across the room. In fact, that's the tool the Course uses. It's about helping your mind let go of that specific idea that I am me and that person is that person. Instead of that, what you'd see in your special relationships and people you just meet on the street is, that's me over there. That's me over there looking at me as we walk towards one another. As soon as I said that, you have an image in your mind of someone walking towards you, but you walking towards you, looking at you as you walk towards you. That's your imagination, reaching past the discomfort of a specific point of view called Jackie looking at this person, and including within its experience the idea that Jackie is Joe looking back at Jackie as they're walking towards one another. And at the moment you're in that confusing, non-specific state of being both viewer and the viewed, that's what the Course is training your mind to let in, so that you stop seeing yourself as just this person, this small, little, isolated thing. Because if you identify with all of humanity, big job, you begin to see yourself as something much greater than any one of us. That's the purpose. This is leaning towards oneness. This is leaning towards an all-inclusiveness. And to understand the blessedness of everything you expand to include in your mind's imagination and therefore in your experience, you are reaching towards equanimity, as the Buddhists describe it. That's what this Course is all about. What it says is the opposite of love is fear. What is all-encompassing has no opposite. Two contradictory statements.
Mm.
Take the one you can understand. If you can understand the first one, but not the second one, take it. If you
Right.
understand the second one, you realize that the first one starts you on the path to understanding the second one. This is one of the beauties of the course.
And you know, one of the things I've learned from you too, whether you have said it directly, maybe I just picked it up. I feel like, you know, in the example you just shared there, like, take what you can grab, right?
Yes.
Like, because this is unlike what you like what we know. It is. It's the complete opposite.
Yes,
But
so
what I've also seen you do or say to me has been, and you know what, and be very kind and gentle to yourself in the process. So, you know, because, you know, the mind can jump in there, or the chattering mind is like, oh my God, you know,
yeah.
which some people, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I will use my own experience. That's the best thing to do. I remember when the first time I picked up the course, right? And I was like, okay, I am going to, and how I learned about it was through Marianne Williamson. It's so interesting, right? Like now I'm about to truly date myself. So I had gotten a cassette tape of hers, and she was talking about it. I was like, I was raised in the Baptist church in the South.
Yeah.
You can't get no more, Southern than I
Right.
was born in.
Right.
And so I was like, I've never heard of the Course in Miracles. And of course, that just led me to go, and okay, well, all right, let me see what this is. And as I picked it up, and I was like, good Lord, this ain't for me. Nope. I don't understand none of that,
Yeah.
and I put it down for years.
Mm-hmm.
I just walked past it on my bookshelf, like, yeah, there go that blue book again, but I never picked it back up. And then I would, hear people talk about it. But to get back to what I was saying is that what you just shared right there was get what you can get,
Mm-hmm.
and just be kind and gentle with yourself for what you can get
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So
See, I
true.
listened to you. I listened to you.
Well, you are just, I have found talking to you about these things so marvelous. You inspire me. Often you have no idea when I'm leading a meeting or when I'm talking to someone where I'm leading them through the course in some way, shape, or form. I seldom get to explain what a blessing it is to have someone receive these things, because as it turns out, I'm one of the receivers. I have found so often you'll say something, or you ask a question, and something I never even reflected on becomes clear, and I share it. Now we both have it.
Mm-hmm.
And without that spark from you, I never would have heard that. And I just want to thank you for being that type of presence.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, I think that what you said just sums it all up. We are meeting ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. One of the toughest things about course teaching is to understand that you've made up the world. Now that's a steep one. That's always a steep one. Mm-hmm. But then we want to begin to kind of soften the blow by trying to make up the idea that, well, if I'm making up the world, then so is my neighbor making up the world, and so and their neighbors and all my relatives there. This is the world we're all making up. No. Doesn't work that way. In oneness, there's no such thing as you all.
Right.
That's you over there in a pair of pants, making up the world.
That's
Or
the
that's,
really deep
yes,
teachings that you
yes,
do, right? Because when
it's
you
a
say
challenge.
it like that, it makes me like, oh wait, let me
Yeah,
process. And it's not a process, it's just what you said touches the truth
yes,
in me,
yes,
right? Like there's whether I can fully comprehend it at the moment, it touched, like truth recognizes truth
I hear you. Yes,
when it
yes,
hears it.
yes. Well, see, you know, the course is not for everyone. This language that we're using to describe our experience and what we're describing basically of the divine
Mm.
is not for everyone. There's a few cautionary tales in the course, and that's one of them. Another one is that just because you know you're not a body does not mean that the person before you with a gun knows they're not a body.
Mhm.
So then what does that mean? How do you deal with someone who decided not only are you not a body, but the fact that, I mean, not only are you a body, but the fact that you are a particular body,
Mhm.
your gender, your race, your class, or whatever is coming across to them. How do you deal with knowing you're not a body and knowing that your brother still thinks you are? Does that give you permission to despise them, think them less a citizen of the human race because they would beat you because your gender? They would beat you because your complexion light or dark, different than theirs. They would do something to hurt you because you speak with an accent, or you don't dress a certain way, or you are overweight, or you are underweight, whatever those things actually mean.
Mhm.
That not only does the person before you think you are a body, but it means something. And their thought about what it means justifies their attack on your body.
Mhm.
It becomes important to understand that it does not serve my brother for him to let my brother attack my body under the justification that I'm not a body, I'm free for blah, blah, blah. No,
Mhm.
that does not communicate to my brother who he is. And the least productive thing you can do is help my brother misunderstand who and what he is. Because these bodies only have two purposes: to learn who and who/what you really are, which is love. The other purpose is to communicate love.
All right, repeat. Wait a minute. Repeat that. Pause and repeat. Rewind.
According to the course, these bodies have two purposes: to learn that what you are as love, and to communicate/teach/demonstrate love.
Mhm.
And to allow your body to be destroyed by a person who thinks you're a body does not communicate love,
Mhm.
unless it does. But I'm not Jesus. So for the most part, I can safely assume that teaching won't come up for me. That I would stand and let my body be attacked and destroyed as a communication of love is probably unlikely.
Mhm.
It's not impossible, but it's probably unlikely. If a person decides that, for example, I want to vote so that I can use that vote to demonstrate love and teach love to those I know and love, because I realize that not to do so would be to cause them needless pain, which would perhaps cause them to misunderstand my love for them. But I have a brother who doesn't want me to vote, doesn't want me to use that form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Is he doing that because he hates me? Not according to the Course. He's doing that because he is afraid. Now, shall I let him do that and tell those I love, well, so-and-so wouldn't let me vote, so I can't protect us with the laws that a vote would allow me access to?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. That may or may not be communicating love to those that I love. So here I am. How do I do what I must do to communicate love to my brother who would stop me and my family who would understand my right to vote as an expression of my love for them, because it protects a body that they may in fact still think they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So in one hand, that same love causes me to push back against my brother, as well as is an expression of my love for the brothers I would use and sisters. I would use this right to protect their bodies, who they think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's not so simple.
Right.
I always tell people, particularly people who, for example, I don't think I'm Black. What I know is that's what my body seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
While it may mean that it has no definition, that I have no definition for that,
Mm-hmm.
it does not mean that I don't live in a world in which my brothers and sisters do, and it means something. This how this body seems to be, how it looks. Some would deny my humanity because of how my body looks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's actually new in human history. Used
New
to
in what
be
way?
new in what way? The ancient Greeks saw that there were humans and there were barbarians, and it had nothing to do with the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Either you are Ionian or you were not Ionian. Whether you're an Ionian from North Africa with sallow, maybe dark skin, you dressed a certain way, you spoke the language, you knew the mysteries. You were a human being. If your hair was gold and your skin was light and you spoke some variation of early Roman, because you lived on that peninsula we now call Italy, you were a barbarian. You were not human. And yes, the Roman Empire, before there was a Roman Empire, the Greeks considered them barbarians.
So it was never about the color of your skin.
No,
It was
not
about,
then. No, right.
You identified with, you were in part of the
you-
culture, you spoke the
Exactly.
language, that's what you were.
There was only one valid culture, one valid language.
Mm-hmm.
Ionian.
Right. And if you didn't
Period.
speak it, then you were the other.
Yeah, you were the other. Human history shows what we have done to decide what is the other has shifted and changed. And in modern times, the other has to do with skin color.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not new. You know where the term slave came from.
Do tell us.
Yeah, I can tell by your look on your face, you do know. Slave is basically a transliteration of the word Slav, because in the Roman Empire, they would take these Slavic people, capture them, and bring them into the Roman Empire as in servitude. So many blonde people that we don't think of that way today, in ancient Rome, were easily identified as slaves, usually by their language or how they dressed. They were not actually allowed to dress like a full Roman citizen.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them they dressed like Slavs or slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was not a racial factor. And even a slave in certain legal ways could achieve humanity. So we have played around with this idea of the other throughout our human history. And it is in fact a part of our psyche that we gather together against that other in groups to make war or protect ourselves against war. It's a function that no longer serves us, but it's an impulse that we're stuck with until we have learned to let it go. And we've been trying to let it go since ancient times. And that's why we had so many amazing axial age religions, because even that far back, it was recognized that, hey, this doesn't really work, this otherness, this otherizing that we do. The meaning we give, the distinctions that we see, the importance we give those distinctions is now in our way. So it's in our way in terms of peace. It's in our way in terms of how we work with and relate to one another. That's what this course is about. Mm-hmm. This course is about dissolving the idea of otherness a little at a time until it's all gone. It's about letting go of the barriers we put between ourselves, how we recognize our humanness and to elevate our humanness beyond the bodies that we seem to have that we can call human, and see ourselves more expansively as all there is. And this takes a great deal of imagination. It takes a great deal of practice. It's a process. This is why we do the workbook, because the workbook lessons are always expanding this idea of what you are. And no matter what's going on in your life, if you can bring the workbook lessons to what's going on in your life, it has that effect of broadening how you see others inclusively and how you see yourself as a result. The course is about understanding your limitlessness, and not intellectually.
Right.
The longer you're with the course, the more you recognize that which is before me belongs to me, and that is included in what I am, and she is included in what I am, and he is included in what he is. No matter what they seem to be doing, no matter what they look like.
That's right.
And even if they are antagonistic, even dangerous, that view brings a sense of peace to what happens next. The stronger the martial artist,
mm-hmm.
the more likely the response to an unexpected attack is not to attack back,
right,
but to step back and assess what the situation is here.
mm-hmm. What is this for?
Yes, what is this for? Yes, and maybe even turn and run and flee from physical conflict, and not out of fear,
mm-hmm.
out of choice. This kind of fearlessness makes choices,
Mm-hmm.
expands choices. So we are in an action mode instead of a reaction mode in life.
Right.
What was it Confucius said? One who is happy when things are going well, and sad and upset when things are not us. It's a slave to circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what this course is about, an equanimity, a peace that passes all understanding,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make us freeze in our tracks when things happen, but gives us a centeredness, a clarity of seeing things as they are,
Mm-hmm.
and responding to them adroitly, not out of fear.
I love the way that, in your blog, you tie it all back. So as we are, those who are studying the course, as we're studying it, you give us an opportunity to yes, read this, understand that, but tie it, bring it right back to oneness, right?
I try.
Well, you do.
Thank you.
And I have learned to, as I study whatever the lesson is I'm doing that day, I go straight to that oneness blog. Let me see how this relates, right? Because it does offer a person another perspective, right? And I think is for me, during the lesson, I need a little bit more sometimes. I do sit with it. And my practice is to say, all right, Holy Spirit, what am I to get out of this? Because, I see what's on the page, but tell me what I am to know.
Yeah.
So, we have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to get to one other thing. And I think I don't know if you said anything about this, but the title of this podcast is Come Empty. And I want to first of all ask you what that means for you. But when I was thinking about, and this really was born out of a conversation I was having for the Pure Awareness Conference, and I was asked, what do you want people to do, when they come to your session? And I was like, oh, come empty. Meaning, don't bring what you think come so that you can be filled up, right? Because, if you're already filled up with all your stuff, it's very unlikely anything else can get in there. So that's kind of what kind of spawned the title of this podcast. And so, and I know that might be easier said than done when it comes to just living your life, right? Or every day. But if I can come empty of all of my stuff, or at least being willing to see that I got some stuff there, when I do sit with the lesson, I can get a deeper understanding of it. I'll take what's in the lesson. I'll take what's on your blog, and I'll ask, I'll contemplate that. Let me just see, what is this saying for me? So when you hear that, come empty phrase, as we are on a spiritual path, whatever, if you're using a Course of Miracles, whatever it is you're using out there, because I know there's a lot of stuff, right? But
Yes.
what does that mean to you?
Well, what it means it means several things to me. First of all, no matter how my buttons are pushed, particularly when they're pushed, what's so important in all situations is to ask, what is this for? Now, that's a course, that's we're quoting the course, as you know. The other way of saying that is remain curious.
Yes.
This world is designed to teach you one of two lessons only. First lesson it teaches, when that jack in the box jumps up and makes you want to run out of the room, is that you're small, tiny, helpless, and a victim. The other lesson, if you will sit calmly and watch the show as it springs up, is to understand that what you are has no limit. Your limitlessness is the only thing that's real about you. So as it shows up in your experience, whatever it is, remember, and that too belongs to me, and that too belongs to me, and that too belongs to me. The tendency is to go with the world's teaching. Oh no, I have no connection with that jerk. I'm using polite terms. Oh no, that person is just horrendous, and so on. And I have no connection at all to that. To expand to include, and that requires curiosity, because it showed up because somewhere inside you, you believe that thing that tweaked your day is justified in your mind. You brought baggage into this situation, that this situation justifies, so you won't let it go.
Oh yeah.
And instead of hiding the baggage, saying I shouldn't think this way, look at your response to it. Look at your baggage. Look at the grip you have on it. Own it. Because if you can own the grip you have on it, you can own letting go of that grip. You whitewash it and say, well, no, that's not spiritual. That's not what a good person thinks and does. I'm going to say an affirmation. Affirmations do work. They're a little slow. They're very comfortable. I'm asking you to be uncomfortable. Don't affirm it away. Look at it. No matter how horrendous you judge it to be, forgive yourself and decide to either continue to carry it, which, believe it or not, it's okay if that's a choice, or to let it go. Eventually you will let it go. I can guarantee you that.
Yes.
Because oneness is true. Oneness is simply true. And that's not something that will change if you don't own oneness. But eventually you will let it go. You can either let it go now, or you can let it go later. The Course says, choose again, brother.
Choose again.
Choose again.
Just love that. Reverend Ken Davis, thank you so much. For our listeners and viewers out there, you can find Ken's work at the Course in Oneness blog. It's all one word, .com. And anything else you need to say about people accessing that, Reverend Ken?
No, that's perfect. That should work.
Perfect.
Feel free to send me comments, questions.
Yeah. So, and yeah, because you can comment on whatever, is posted there too. So I want to thank you for being available. Thank you for all of your words of wisdom to all of us, right? I appreciate you. And again, I just want to say to everyone that's on that path, just remain curious.
Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of your heartfelt sharing.